Hey guys, it's Jordan here from SwitchWatch. How are you all doing today? Today's review is of Warriors Orochi 4 on the Nintendo Switch. Thanks to Koei Tecmo for providing this review copy for us to tell you guys if it's worth your hard-earned cash or not. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe if you're new here. We do awesome reviews, gameplays, and features all your Nintendo Switch needs. Anyways, let's get on with it. Now just a fair warning here, I'm a bit of a reminiscer for the good old days. Dynasty Warriors 3 and 4 were a big part of my gaming childhood and have shaped my life in more ways than you can possibly imagine. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the Masu games that Koei pumped out so constantly year after year. I pretty much owe my life to the third entry. I won't delve into exactly how, as that's another story for another time, but it's fair to say the series is important to me. That's not going to cloud my judgment though, and I'm going to give it a fair, honest review. The Orochi games are a crossover series that began after the Dynasty Warriors series set in ancient China and the Samurai Warriors series set in feudal Japan had reached peak popularity, and Omega Force wanted to slam them together. That in itself spawned a successful series in the impossibly vast Masu universe. We've arrived here at the 4th entry, and the 5th game overall. As mentioned in all my recent reviews that involve a crossover of sorts, it's not the easiest situation to write a narrative for. I can't think of any single crossover game off the top of my head that pulled off a compelling story due to the absurdity of universes colliding. If you can think of any, let me know in the comments below. The plot picks up from the 3rd entry where the universe-crossing characters are back to their normal lives, completely oblivious to the kerfuffle that just happened. It doesn't take long before things come peculiar once again, as Zeus has plans to create a new world causing mischief by dropping powerful bracelets onto Earth. It begins with 3 members of the Tokugawa army on their way to a mission. Suddenly enveloped by a sinister mist, they soon see that worlds have collided. First with an encounter with the fearsome Lu Bu, who seems to have acquired great power that forces the 3 heroes to flee, only then to encounter Sun Quan, where they quickly realize that they need to work together to sort this big mystical mess out. The story spans dozens and dozens of missions as you gain new allies and go against the souped up Nobunaga Order and the Greek gods. It does its job accordingly, but it's more of a fight these people, then fight these people, and then these people, rinse and repeat. It's fine, but you won't find any intrigue or drama, but that's to be expected. It does its job. If you've ever played a hack and slash game before, you'll definitely be familiar with this game. You'll pick up and play it in an instant just like you did with Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, or One Piece Pirate Warriors, all of them. The gameplay is almost timeless, you could say. It's you versus thousands of troops and enemy generals as you roam the battlefield, performing tasks and eventually taking out the big boss. There are mini objectives throughout that you have to deal with before you go to the main goal, and what I particularly liked about this entry is that it doesn't throw 20 objectives at you at once to do this and to do that, like some of the more recent entries have been guilty of. Instead, they're given to you at a steady pace that you can keep track of. Fighting is very simple, although it has evolved somewhat since I first began playing. You have your normal attack at Y and then a powerful combo ender with X. So you mash the Y button for a while before pressing X and you'll perform a nice variety of over-the-top attacks, all of them pretty much unique to each of the characters. There's the classic Masu attack, of course. This is where a gauge fills up over time as you smack enemies around or take damage yourself. Once full, you can unleash a major, often devastating attack on a large group of enemies. While lacking the extravagancy that I used to love, they are an effective way of taking out enemy generals. Then there's the magic attacks, which pretty much doubles your ability count. After a few missions, you'll learn that holding the R button and then inputting one of the normal attacks, you get different magic attacks of varying levels of power. If certain gauges are full to the brim, then you can use magic to perform the most powerful attack in the game, a united attack where your party and support characters produce an energy ball that slams into the ground. If I have a small complaint is that there's just too many power gauges going on, it's annoying to keep track of them all. The display design does its best to show them as effectively as possible, but still, managing them all is a bit of a pain. Warriors Orochi 4 includes the biggest playable character roster ever created for a game of this type. Sure, only one company really pursues this genre these days, but it's a nice thing to boast for Koei Tecmo as a marketing campaign. It's genuinely impressive and overwhelming. No doubt you'll look at the character selection screen and get totally lost. It's almost off-putting in a way, but thankfully they are all introduced gradually as you progress through the missions and chapters. It has been stated that there are 170 characters to play as, and with that high of a number, I'm just gonna believe them. I didn't count. The mix of Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors plus a small number of new original characters taken from Greek mythology has really taken it to the next level. Did I try all of the characters? No, of course not. I'm but a measly human who needs to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom before this review had to be done. But it's fair to say that if you're familiar with any of the more recent games, you'll be right at home with this one. You'll very quickly find who your favourites are. Before each mission, you choose 3 characters you want to take into battle with you. I must admit, I've not been a fan of the more recent trends of switching characters mid-battle. I've always loved the idea of you being a one-man army of sorts. I think Warriors Orochi 4 handles it well though. Your 3 characters aren't spread around the map, instead they magically switch right where you're standing. It takes an air of believability out of it, but it actually brings the combat to life, for the fact that switching characters mid-combo pulls off an extra attack that can lead the new fighter to continue the combo. You can do this indefinitely as long as you have enemies to keep it going. It feels great, honestly, and the flow is some of the best in the Masu games I've played to this date. Admittedly, despite my enjoyment and personal attachment to the genre, I haven't kept up with a lot of the recent ones, but I can safely say that I think they nailed it here. The support characters in this game are a little underused in my opinion. Alongside your 3 squad members, you select 4 characters to join the support team. They each have their own little stat points that can boost the stats of the playable team, and they also join in with the United Magic attack, which certainly adds to how awesome it looks. I feel they could have been involved just a little more though. I could keep going on talking about the wealth of content and the little mechanics in this game, like the weapons, the upgrades, the deifying mechanics, skill trees, the relationships between characters. There's just a ton of stuff here that will keep you occupied for a long time. It's a really packed game. What may come as an unexpected surprise is that Warriors Orochi 4 is playable with a single Joy-Con. Just about anyways. They've somehow compacted the control scheme that uses almost every single button on a normal controller and popped it into a Joy-Con. It's frankly applause-worthy, even if not the ideal way to play. But if you're out and about and want to break out the split screen, co-op without dragging multiple controllers with you, it's a pretty decent alternative. And yes, as per usual, there is a split screen co-op mode where you and a friend have the screen divided to take on the same battle. Back in the day, me and my old best friend used to love tackling these Masu games in this fashion. But as you can see here, the frame rate is unbearably bad. The game absolutely chugs here on the Nintendo Switch in split screen. It's really unfortunate. There is online multiplayer in 2 forms as far as I can tell. The first is basically tackling the campaign with another person online. There's also a battle mode which is 3v3 in a headquarters sort of game where you need to invade or defend 3 bases. During my review period, I couldn't find anyone to play with online unfortunately, and the battle mode didn't seem all that polished when I did manage to play it for a very short tutorial time. Visually, I think Warriors Orochi 4 does pretty well on the Switch. The series hasn't been particularly known for its graphical prowess, a side effect of having so many enemies on screen of course. Considering the power of the Switch, I think it looks good. Character models of your allies are great, environments are basic, but that's always been the case. There's a decent amount of colour hanging around with the different season types and stuff. I'm honestly fairly impressed. There's still some dark, drab environments, but they're not constantly one after the other, which is nice. The frame rate isn't perfect though. There are issues, often emanating from special attacks, but it's not enough to get in the way of the enjoyment that I got from the game. Handheld mode runs pretty much the same too, maybe slightly worse but not particularly noticeable. I know you guys are fans of seeing handheld footage of certain games, so later today after this review has settled down I'll pop up some handheld footage for you guys to check out, so stay tuned for that. As stated, the split screen is just an absolute mess though, and I and a friend literally played for like 20 seconds before deciding no. And I'm the kind of guy who can often tolerate frame rate issues. If you're experienced with Masu games, then you'll already know that the music for Warriors Orochi 4 is awesome. While I'm not wholly experienced with the Orochi series, what I do know is that the Warriors games absolutely love to give you way over the top metal solos that are just unbelievably awesome. I was shocked to find out that actually Orochi 4 has stepped into different genres for this one. It does retain a chunk of the crazy guitar work, but actually now there's a lot of modern electronic dance music. Whatever the genre's called, I'm too old to know what I'm talking about these days. Either way, the music is awesome, far more eclectic than it's ever been, and it's a highlight of the game for me.
敵の大将が出てきたようですね。なので諭してあげましょう。大使陣がこの世界。よし。
The game is pretty much entirely voice acted, although in a recent trend of Koei's, it's only in Japanese. Now that's all fine and dandy, I don't mind Japanese only per se, but it can be a major stumbling block in regards to keeping up with the tide and nuances of the battle going on. There's a never-ending stream of characters updating you, discussing stuff, planning, reacting. They literally never stop talking. When that's all in Japanese, it's almost impossible to keep up with. You're so focused on the action you don't have time to read all the text popping up from the characters. Sure, all the major developments and goals are highlighted far more prominently, but you do feel like you're missing some of the immersion compared to Dynasty Warriors games before. As for value, well, on the eShop, Warriors Orochi 4 comes at a cost with a full price tag. Digitally, it's $59.99 in the US and an extra premium £54.99 in the UK, which is almost unheard of aside from Koei Tecmo games. Now that is a little bit of a dig, but honestly, the content and quality is there for me. To make a digital purchase, not so bad. It may not have the polish or budget of a Zelda or Mario game, but there's a lot of stuff here that can keep you occupied for dozens and dozens of hours, I'm sure. If digitally is too expensive for you, which I don't blame you, there is a physical edition which I'll put in a link for in the description if you want to help us out a little. It's a little cheaper than the eShop price, but I'm sure that will go down even more over the coming months. Overall guys, I'm really rather impressed with Warriors Orochi 4. It's in a heavily crowded market, even on the Switch, but for me it stands out as good as the others, if not one of the best. The flow of combat is great as you keep up combos, switching between characters and unleashing the myriad of attacks upon your foes. They've just nailed it. It feels great. There's so much content too, with lots of optional stuff surrounding a solid story campaign. The presentation isn't half bad either, despite a few performance hitches and a terrible split screen effort. I enjoyed it, and it's my favourite Musou game in a long while. Obviously these types of button mashing games aren't for everyone, but fans of the genre will enjoy it a lot. If you like these games, I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. If you're not into these games, however, I'm not sure this one will change your mind, but I think it's a good entry point along with Hyrule Warriors. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed this review of Warriors Orochi 4 on the Nintendo Switch. It's also available on PS4, Xbox One and PC, just so you know. If you found this useful in any way, be sure to like and leave a comment. If you're new here, then we would love it if you joined the SwitchWatch community by clicking that subscribe button and that little bell. And finally, head over to the website switchwatch.co.uk. There's loads of reviews that we don't have time to make into videos, so I'm sure you'll find lots of tasty treats over there. I've been Jordan from SwitchWatch, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.